Well, welcome into the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. We're all about connecting the folks of Johnson City and to our small business owners here. And I'm your host, Ryan McKinney. And thanks for listening. And thanks to Leighton Hart from Market Street Media and hooking us up with some beat drops today. As you can tell, we are out of an abundance of caution, wearing our masks today to keep everybody safe. So please bear with us if I'm a little muffled or you can't hear as well as you thought you would. So thanks for being here. Today, I'd like to welcome the founder of Action VFX to the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. His name is Rodolphe Pierre Louis, better known as Ro, right?
Yes.
And he's here to share a bit of his story and about his business here in Johnson City. So, Ro, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always excited to talk about business. It's fun.
And it's probably not hard for folks in Johnson City to figure out that you weren't born and raised in Johnson City with a name like Rodolphe Pierre Louis.
That sounds very East Tennessean for me. I don't know what you're talking about.
So you are born and raised in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, correct?
Yes.
Tell folks, which a lot of our folks have transplanted in, and then there's a lot of us that have just kind of grown up and been born and raised here in Johnson City. What was life like for you in Haiti growing up?
I mean, I would say I moved here when I was 12, moved to Tennessee when I was 12. So, I mean, had a pretty good childhood. It was just going out, doing random kid stuff. Obviously, Haiti is very different from East Tennessee, very different from the United States as a whole. But no, I mean, life was good. It was a decently small family. Just my dad, my mom, and have one brother. And yeah, so when I was 12, that was back in 2005, we moved to Knoxville, actually.
Okay. What brought you? I mean, I'm just curious, what brought you guys up to Tennessee? Why Tennessee?
Yeah, my dad was going to college in Knoxville. And then after Knoxville, he moved to go to college here in Johnson City. And so that's kind of how the whole thing happened.
Right.
East Tennessee is kind of a random place for a Haitian to to come straight to, but
Sure.
that's kind of how we ended up in the area.
That's great. That's amazing. And then so from there, you ended up going to college, Miami-Dade.
hmm
And so what was it that took you from now Northeast Tennessee down there to Miami?
I mean, one, it was good. Like the idea of like changing scenery a bit was really cool. I love warm weather, and Miami
too.
definitely seemed like it would be the right place. Originally, I didn't move there to go to Miami-Dade, but like I moved there to go to another school, but that didn't end up working out.
Yeah.
But I remember my parents were like, "Hey, just move back and go to school in East Tennessee." But I was already there and felt that it really would be the best place at the moment for me to be. And I was freelancing, mainly like doing music videos and commercials for different companies. So it felt like this would be the better place for me
Sure.
to be at that time. So
Which, from what I've heard, you were kind of making movies in your childhood too, 10, 12, 13, 14 years old, kind of doing some filmmaking and doing things
Mhm.
like that already.
Yep. I think I did my first short film when I was 10, and it was a 25-minute short film, which to this day still blows my mind because now to make a 25-minute thing, it's so much effort that goes
Sure.
into it. But
Right.
back then, I didn't really care. Just grab some friends. That was actually when we were in Haiti and
Oh, yeah.
just went and made a little movie. So,
What was
so yeah,
the
I've always been into filmmaking.
What was the movie about?
It was about a bicycle thief. So I think my brother played the bicycle thief, and then it was like the detective trying
Okay.
to find out who did it.
And so you're doing that through college, and then you start a company,
hmm
and that's Rodipolis.
Yes.
And tell our folks like what that was for, and how you started that, and what it ended up becoming.
Yeah. So I guess slight backstory. I got involved in visual effects in 2006. So
Okay.
that was like a year after we moved to the US. And kind of realized that, oh man, you mean to tell me we can actually do all those, explosion and effect
Right.
stuff on a home computer? So that's when, yeah, I just kind of got fascinated by it. So I always did that. And I mean, my love for filmmaking has, always been there since I was very young. So in starting Rodipolis, the reason I started that, and Rodipolis was essentially a website that I sold different effects packages to
Okay.
filmmakers and visual effects artists. And how that got started was because I was freelancing right after high school. I went straight into freelancing, and for a lot of those projects, like those music videos and those commercials, sometimes I would need to create my own effects for them.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I can actually do that.
Yeah.
And Rudy Polis, it's kind of a strange name, but that was always my username
Okay.
online.
Yeah.
And I had a YouTube channel called Rudy Polis where I would do tutorials, like visual effects tutorials and
Okay.
things like that. And started building up an audience on there. And like most entrepreneurial minded people, when you have an audience, you think, hey, what can I sell them?
Yeah. What else can I do?
so so yeah, it kind of made sense because it felt like, okay, I'm already doing effects for myself to use in my own projects. So what about, taking a chance and doing it and see if someone else would buy it and actually use it in their
Right.
own projects and help them out there. So that's kind of how that got started. I released a pack, was called Shootout Stock Pack, which
Okay.
was yeah, stock footage pack of like different gun effects and different things like that. Wasn't very good at all, and was selling it like for $15 a download,
Okay.
and yeah, so that's kind of how it got started. It worked. People were buying it, not huge numbers or anything, but enough that I felt like, okay, let's do another one,
Okay.
and so that's kind of how it got started.
And then that transitioned into action VFX.
hmm Yeah, so not immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So like November 2011 was when I released Shootout Stock Pack on
Okay.
RoadiePolis.com, which no longer exists. Rest in peace. and and yeah, it was so in January 2014, that's when I moved back to Johnson City.
Okay.
And by then I had decided to stop freelancing because my true love for filmmaking has always been movies and storytelling.
Okay.
So like I never really dreamed of doing commercials and music videos for people. That was
Sure.
something I did just for the money. And by
Yeah.
that time, Rudy Polis had picked up enough that I could actually just live off of only that. Especially moving back to Johnson City, that was a
Sure.
big part of me moving back
I was
to
gonna
from
ask you.
Miami
Yeah, I was
because it
gonna
was
ask.
like, hey, yeah, you mean I can pay 3 times less for rent? Let's do it.
So for anybody that has friends that don't live in Johnson City, share that portion of this podcast with your friends all over the country because Ro is exactly right. We have a great standard of living here.
Yeah, and yeah, so I mean, I really enjoyed it, and especially with being an entrepreneur. Like, like there's enough risk in entrepreneurship that why not put yourself in the best position
Sure.
to succeed. So yeah, once I moved back here, 2014, I got to do Ready Polis full time, and really that helped me to focus more on it and really realize that, man, this is good and I'm making a decent living, being in Johnson City, but it's not enough. It's time to try to take things to the next level.
Okay.
Because I felt, and that's probably being a bit dramatic, but I felt like every time I would release a new pack, it felt insignificant. Like no one like did it really affect people's lives that much,
Okay.
or is it just good enough that some people buy it? Like there
Sure.
were no ripples being made
Okay.
in the industry at all, and the more I did it, the more different people I met from different companies and stuff. So my world was also getting bigger. And it just felt like, okay, this is the right time. I have the experience to know that I know what I'm doing, but let's see if we can level up this thing massively and do something bigger. And what was bigger at that time? Most people buying up my products were just like more of the prosumer level,
Yeah.
some hobbyists, but no one major doing anything huge. And it felt like, okay, let's go after the Hollywood market.
Okay.
And how do we get to the Hollywood market? Well, it felt like the void that was there was a lack of real, assets, real effects, real explosions, fire
Right.
and destructions, and things that were high quality enough to be used by, the highest level
Sure.
of production. So that's kind of the vision came and felt like, okay, this is the time to actually start working on that. And I mean, originally, it still wasn't meant to be action VFX. It was just supposed to be some new packs on Rhodiopolis. But
Right.
as something that has happened to me quite a few times, you start working on something,
Sure.
and then the more you work on it, the
Hmm.
more you realize the potential of it. And
Absolutely.
I felt that the Rhodiopolis brand started by me, for me, and the foundation was just, hey, this is me doing
Yeah,
this.
for sure.
And I felt it would be better to essentially start over in a sense
Yeah.
of building something and having that foundation already be, hey, this the vision is to be a bigger company
Right.
doing bigger things as opposed to just something that allows me some side money.
Exactly. So then you do a Kickstarter campaign.
Hmm.
And so I know we got some entrepreneurs listening to this and some wannabe entrepreneurs wanting to take it to the next level. Like, what was that like? And what were your expectations
Hmm.
going into that? And why? Man, I know why Kickstarter to get money, but why specifically was it like, hey, we need to get this money? What was
Hmm.
the money going to be used for?
Yeah, so originally I was just going to fund the whole project, and so I think it was going to cost about $10,000, and that was about like all my business savings at the time. And so all that was going to be spent on a shoot. So we got together some pyrotechnicians that,
Okay.
have done work in like movies like Transformers 3. They did some work for that when they shot in Chicago. And so we actually, you know, got in my van and went to Chicago to film, this shoot. And it was one of those things where we thought we overplanned, but once we got there, we realized, oh man, like planning was terrible because
Wow.
everything is falling through. So long story short, after the shoot, I was out of 10 grand, which as I said was like basically my whole business savings
Yeah.
and products that I couldn't sell. It's like, well, I could have sold them, but then I wouldn't feel good about it. And I really knew like we missed the mark on that shoot.
Just the
And
quality, or like you didn't feel proud of what you were going to be putting
yeah,
out there?
yeah, like the quality wasn't there and
Gotcha.
so many different things went wrong. And it was just like, because I had such high hopes for this
Sure.
project and it
Yeah.
just wasn't it at all. And again, I could have salvaged some stuff and released it, but then that would take me back to the exact place that I
Yeah.
already was, which was feeling like, hey, everything I'm releasing is not really making a ripple or making a big difference in
Right.
helping people. So really felt like, okay, this is not the end.
I love
Obviously,
that.
we can't release it, but it's not the end. Let's figure it out. And
Yeah.
of course, to figure it out, I was gonna need money, and Kickstarter seemed to be the perfect place.
Yeah.
And usually, that's not really what you always think of Kickstarter for. Like, hey, we're going to blow things up.
But I can imagine, the people wanting to invest in it are like, hey, we're going to be part of blowing things up.
Hmm.
So it's part of the draw.
Yeah, like and it worked great. Like honestly, because most of well, basically all of the people that backed the Kickstarter were actual filmmakers and VFX artists. So in a lot of ways, it was a pre-order. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
like they help us make it, and they get it at a much cheaper price than it would have been on release date. So and it worked great like that because I mean it's all digital, so didn't really have to
Hmm.
do a lot of fulfilling and sending T-shirts and stuff. I actually made a joke about that on the Kickstarter video. Like, I know you don't want a crappy T-shirt. Like, you
Right.
want the
You
product,
want the
so we'll
product.
so we'll give it to you. And so yeah, the goal was to raise $20,000 on Kickstarter, and we ended up raising 59,000. which was amazing, and which we did spend every dime of that to
Yeah.
launch. So I'm
Yeah.
glad we raised that and
For
didn't
sure.
only raise 20.
Yeah.
But you said the Kickstarter worked out. It
Yeah.
it it helped us really get started, and haven't had to do a Kickstarter since, so that was good. But it definitely was a very hard season, though. Like I would say, up to that point, that was the hardest thing I had ever done, like running the Kickstarter campaign. In my life, it was very stressful, very
Sure.
tough, and it's like it wasn't like now that there's about 16 of us at the company, so there's a team to be able to do
That's
stuff.
right.
But really, like I was the one doing 95% of the heavy lifting of that
Right.
thing, and it was very stressful. But hey, it paid off. It worked, and yeah, the backers were happy. They got the
That's great.
products, and we got to get started, and Action VFX picked up. So
That's what I think is the genius in the route that you took during that campaign, was going to these filmmakers and saying, "Hey, what are you missing? What
mhm,
would you like to be in this space that's not?" And you knowing, "Hey, I think I know what I'm going to do to get there," but that instant clientele right there to then help you fund the campaign,
mhm.
and then say, "Hey, here's the work I'm going to do," being proud of your work and saying, "Hey, this is what I can get to you." I mean, I don't think you can do it any better than you did it.
Hey, well, thank you. And yeah, like we managed to get a lot of things right with that whole project. And but yeah, I would say the biggest thing that we got right was definitely approaching it in a sense of humility. Didn't really come in as, oh, like I'm this hotshot. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like the very first step was surveying. I ended up getting like 300 or so filmmakers and visual effects artists
Right.
to fill out the survey and really give good information on what they want, what's missing, and things like that. So like it was always very community driven as far as, hey, let's fix a problem that exists, and a problem that I was also facing because, believe it or not, I would be watching movies and I would like there is such a lack of diversity in like the stock visual effects stock footage
Gotcha.
market that I would like people would notice, like, oh yeah, like I know this
I
explosion.
remember this explosion from the last movie I
Yeah, and
watched.
it's like because no one is making enough high quality stuff to be
Okay.
used. So it was one of those things where, hey, we're all in this together. Let's fix this problem. And that was the vision of Action VFX, and that's what we're able to do.
So when you walk into somebody or meet somebody at a restaurant, and they're like, "So, Ro, what do you do?" Like, what's your 30-second, like, this is what my business does?
Hmm. Yeah, I have different versions of that
Okay.
depending on which room that I'm in, because sometimes I give a very layman version of it
Give
because
me that, because we're not talking to filmmakers, besides
yeah,
some of my filmmaker buddies here in Johnson City, not listening to this around all over
yeah.
United States. What, like, if you ran into my family at the restaurant at White Duck
Hmm.
here in a minute, and you're explaining to Sarah, like, this is what I do.
Yeah, I would tell them that, hey, my name is Ro, and I'm the founder and CEO of Action VFX. We are a visual effects stock footage company. And what that means is that we actually go out and film real effects, whether it's explosions and fires and blood and smoke and all of those things. And we film it in a way that allows us to remove the background of it and allow anyone to put it in their own project. So let's
That's
say you're
cool.
making a movie
Yeah.
and you need to blow up a car or something like that, then you can go on our website and browse our library and you'll see different explosions. And essentially, you'll just license that through our website and yeah, bring it into your program and overlay it over your footage and make
That's
it look
awesome.
good.
I mean, I'm got a huge smile on my face. You guys can't see it, but like, hearing that is just like, that just sounds like the the opportunity of a lifetime, considering the fact too that I can imagine from your filmmaking and your editing, this isn't just let's go blow stuff up.
Hmm.
This is, we got to have the right camera angles, we got to have lighting, and
Hmm.
so really that love of filmmaking is being transposed into this business where you're also getting to do fun stuff like blow things up and things like that.
No, yeah, for sure. And that was definitely one big advantage that I had, was having that filmmaking background, because it's like, especially the higher up you go in the industry, the more specialized you get. So like, it's
Absolutely.
very rare that someone doing visual effects would also have a lot of experience shooting,
Okay.
different projects and things. And so
Right.
that definitely really helped a ton, because I already knew about cameras and lenses and lighting and things like that. And that all goes into it. Like, it's not as basic as just, hey, let me just grab this camera quick and just
Exactly.
get this thing and then you're done. But then once you capture it, you have to know enough about visual effects to actually capture it the right way for it to be actually useful for who's
sure.
going to use
For
it.
film.
So, yeah.
And I know for me and probably everybody that's listening, that's just layman's terms listening to this. When you said blow things up, blood, blah blah blah, blah I stopped at blood and was like, wait, what? Like, so tell, like, how are you getting like a blood scene? Which,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's we actually had a good blood shoot a couple years ago, and that was very messy. It's like, if when you went into the room we're filming at, it really did look like serial killers were in there. There was like plastic wraps everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
it was a mess. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's that real blood. It's
Sure.
our secret recipe
Yep. Love it.
of getting stuff.
Great.
But yeah, it's the same concept, right? For example, we did a decapitation effect, right?
Okay.
And how we did that was, I mean, a lot of compressed air, a lot of fake blood, and then we shot that in front of a green screen and just kind of shot it up and stuff. But
Yeah.
then, like, once we key it and remove the background and
Yep.
everything, you can overlay it, remove a head digitally, and it's like, hey, this is
It's
a very,
decapitation.
yep.
Love it. I just love that, man. That's fun. Um, so kind of, so that's one way, blood,
hmm
and the other thing is like explosion. I'm thinking, and fire, and I saw water. Like,
hmm
how are you, or where are you, and what are you doing? Like, I don't know. Some of it's trade secret, and like some of it's
hmm
like, but like, where are you doing explosion?
So we've done them at a couple places. So there's the studio in Irwin,
Yep.
actually, and it's called Primordic Studios, and
Yep.
we've done some stuff over there. And the last big explosion shoot, we actually uh, rented out a farm in Gray, and that's where we got to do it. And I mean, they were pretty massive, so it was good to
Sure.
be secluded and
Yeah.
stuff. And we ended up just using the sky as a blue screen.
Okay.
So just shot against the blue sky, and then that allowed us to remove it. I mean, it was still super tough to remove, but
Sure.
that's kind of how we did it. So yeah, I mean, East Tennessee is very good for blowing things up. That's also another thing that you wouldn't think, because people always ask, for what you do, Johnson City is like, must be a disadvantage. And sure, there could be some disadvantages as far as it's not a big film industry here
Sure.
and stuff, but for a specific business model of shooting guns and blowing things up, it's like East Tennessee is
It's a
great.
great place for that. That's right. So who do you? So you've gone from the little, what would you call him, a prosumer, like the
hmm
kind of guy making his home movies and just kind of doing some fun stuff,
hmm
to like growing into this industry. Who are some of the folks, or where are your effects being used that you're
hmm
like, man, that was one of the funnest ones, or they were great to work with, or that was one of those movies or shows that I was just really really pleased and
hmm
to get onto.
No, yeah, like, it's there's definitely a good amount of them now. Like, we've definitely been blessed to have action VFX be used by really all levels of production. And I mean, I could name a few projects, but I'll just skip to the biggest one, which was Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
Like, some of the explosions in that last battle scene was actually like our explosions and
That's
stuff. So
awesome.
it was definitely a very cool thing to see,
Yeah.
because so it's like, Oh,
We
it's
did
yeah,
that.
it's like it's the thing. So that's definitely the by far the. I mean, you don't get bigger than Endgame, and I'm a
Right.
huge like Marvel fan and
Okay.
stuff. So that was really cool to see. But I mean, various TV shows like Stranger Things on Netflix. That's one of
Okay.
them, and there's a lot, and I always draw a blank whenever I have to
Sure. I
name
get it.
things.
No, I
But
get it.
there's a lot these days.
Right. So what's your vision for Action VFX, like moving forward?
Yeah, so we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary last June, which was
Congratulations.
awesome.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like reflecting back on, okay, what the first 5 years, and now we've kind of established. So it's, what does the next 5 years look like? And it's like the overall vision is wanting to be more than just a visual effects stock footage website, in the sense of realizing that we can really impact the whole compositing community quite a bit. And it's like our vision statement that we started, mid-year this year, was to become the one common driving force behind every compositor's career.
Wow.
And it's like it, and what that means really is we really see ourselves that we can be the place that, whether you're just starting out or you're
Yeah.
already a professional, that we can provide actual value to you, whether that's through our products,
Yeah.
or tutorials like training, and just the community. Like, we just started a forum to connect different people. So that's kind of the direction that we're moving forward to. And we just launched a subscription. That's a
Hmm.
pretty big thing for us. Very excited about that, and it's going well so far.
That's
It's
great.
only about, 3 weeks old now.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, one thing people have always complained about was our pricing wasn't necessarily priced for amateurs. Like, most people that buy from
Absolutely.
us
Sure.
do this for a living, or at least get paid some money for the specific project that they're doing.
Right.
So the subscription is a way that will allow us to broaden how many people we can impact without necessarily devaluing what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, like, have high hopes for that, and so far it's going good too. So
That's great. So when somebody says, "All right, Ro, we got a couple other, you know, special effects, visual
mhm.
effects companies on the market, and you're here in Johnson City, and we're interviewing a couple, and we're getting ready to have this Avengers Endgame movie come out. Like, what's your value proposition when talking to not only an amateur but maybe a big time
Mhm.
studio?"
Yeah, I mean, the thing with, action VFX, from the very beginning, the goal has always been to be the highest quality in the industry, but also provide the largest quantity and variation. And these are the two biggest things that we do right.
Yeah.
As far as quality, and I mean, it's easy for me to say, but most people do say that we are the best on the market as far as having consistent, high quality assets that they can rely on, and know that, hey, if I'm getting it from Action VFX, we know it's gonna be good, and it's gonna
Yeah.
be shot a certain way. It's gonna, like, the technical specifications are gonna match, what I'm doing and stuff. So that's the big part of it. But also the variety, as I said, it was always both quality and quantity,
Yeah.
because without the quantity, you kind of end up having the same problem that made us want to start Action VFX to begin with, which
Yeah.
was, oh, like, I know this thing because it's the only one that's out
Mhm.
there. So we try to compete against ourselves, essentially.
Yeah.
That's why on the website you'll see we'll have, Gas Explosions Volume 1, and then we'll have Gas Explosions Volume
Volume
2,
2.
and then we'll have
Nice.
large scale so it's kind of like, hey, even if you are only using Action VFX to provide you enough to where it's not just the same thing over and
Sure.
over again. So
Well, and I think you hit on something there too for our folks is like, sometimes it's not about being better than the competition. It's just
hmm
continuing to be a better version of yourself or
hmm
a better version of our company or where we were yesterday compared to where we are today.
hmm
So I'm glad you guys kind of take that same mindset that we do. Um, so as a startup, right, as a founder of a company,
hmm
in particular in Johnson City, what kind of community, what kind of, I know you're involved in Founders Forge, what kind of for folks that are looking to maybe gravitate towards small business or entrepreneurship in
Mhm.
Johnson City, talk about your involvement in that and what your thoughts are about folks either moving here, kind of like when you came
Mhm.
back from Miami, or our local residents getting into starting their own business.
No, yeah, I think this area is a great place to do that. I mean, obviously, it was a great place for me to do that, and it worked out really well. Um, it's like, I mean, my favorite thing about Johnson City is just the fact that it's like it's small enough to be low key, but at the same time, I mean, it's beautiful. You have all
Yeah.
this, nature and, everything it has to offer. Very good people here and things like that. So, I mean, as an environment for me to do a business, I really do enjoy it quite a bit. And it's been good to see progress being made, especially on the startup front. And as you said, organizations like Founders Forge, which I'm a part of, our mission really is to foster a
Mhm.
startup ecosystem here,
Right.
because the thing that ended up happening, and while I didn't necessarily have that problem myself, but people usually work better when they see others like them and you can, interact with them. And,
Right.
you know, for me at the start of Action VFX and Rody Polis and all of that, like I mean, I didn't really see myself as a startup founder or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the more the business kept growing, the more I started realizing how few people I could relate to. You know,
Sure.
I would be going through something, and everyone else is talking about how much they hate their job and how their bosses suck, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't relate to that at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm dealing with
Right.
serious things. So
Yes.
it's like the more I do this and the more the business grows, the more I realize the need really to connect with other like-minded individuals, to
Right.
actually have people not only to get advice from and share with, but just commiserate with.
Right.
Like people that can actually relate, that have been through what you've been through. And sometimes it's also great to also return the favor, because some
Absolutely.
people can be looking at me and feel like, hey, like, you're an inspiration, and I want to do. And I'm always like, wait, what? Like I'm not an inspiration. Too much pressure, I don't want
Right.
it. But yeah, so, and that's some of the things we've been able to do with Founders Forge, but also we have things like boot camps
Yeah.
and different events
Yeah.
to
Pitches
really,
and
yeah. So it's community, but also it's actually growing, like giving back knowledge and opportunities and things like that to the environment.
that's
So
great.
it's been really cool. Like, definitely check us out at myfoundersforge.com.
There we go. Speaking of opportunity, like what's trending, what's new in your all's world of uh, visual effects?
Mhm.
Let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about what's also trending at your company.
I would say the biggest thing right now is Unreal Engine, and that's software that a lot of people traditionally have used to make video games and things like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of shifting to where a lot of visual effects artists are using that, for visual effects, for compositing, and people are using that to make short films and things
Okay.
like that. And what's cool about Unreal Engine is, I mean, it's like 3D, like, because video games, the way they're
Sure.
built is kind of like 3D and stuff. And
Yeah.
we've been working on some products for that, which essentially are converting what we're already doing, but doing it in a way that would allow it to be used in a 3D scene,
In
so where
that
you can
software.
rotate around and different things like that. And so that's a big thing in the industry, and that's something we're really working on being a part of, evolving our offering, so to
Right.
speak. So it's not just, oh, let me grab this and overlay it here, but it's more, oh, how can I actually bring this actual fire and move around it? And it's really cool stuff.
That is cool. Um, well, Ro, that about wraps up our time here today on the Johnson City Small Business Podcast. I'd like to thank you for investing your time with us. Where do people go to find you, connect with you, LinkedIn with you, all that kind of stuff?
No, for sure. So Oh, website actionvfx.com. That's the best place to kind of see what we're all about. And we have, we're on all the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of that.
Yep.
And don't really do much personal social media at this moment, but you can also find me on Instagram at the Rotivator. And eventually I'll live up to the name on my Instagram profile and motivate people more. But
well, I think it's great. I'd also like to thank you guys, the listener, for dropping into the show today. Please subscribe to the podcast. Sorry about that. Make sure to check out Brad Weems, Better Every Day, who's also here on the Market Street Media platform. And special thanks to Market Street Media and to our sound engineer, Leighton Hart, who's responsible once again for romancing your ears. And this is the Johnson City Small Business Podcast with the Rotivator, Louis. I'm your host, Ryan McKinney. And until next time, keep living your life by design.